the NBA offseason and the rumor mill around it never really stop. It slows down at times and, as you get to the season, but we're starting in Atlanta today because the Hawks are reportedly delaying a contract extension with Lu Dort, and that matters because Lu Dort isn't just a defensive piece. He also has a nearly $18 million mid-tier contract that could be used, and some could say it could be used in a bigger trade for a star. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And then also there's buzz around both Bradley Beal and D'Angelo Russell, where their next teams could be, as D'Angelo Russell and his team are reportedly heading towards a buyout situation. And Bradley Beal has interest from the Heat, the Celtics, and the Clippers. Plus the Miami Heat also want to talk to them. We're going to talk about all that plus more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of the Full Court Podcast. My name is Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at the Full Court YT on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content today, y'all. And the Atlanta Hawks reportedly are holding off on a Lu Dort extension for a number of reasons. And, Lu Dort is entering the final year of course, of a contract that's $18 million as well. It has been noted by multiple executives around the league that the Hawks have several mid-tier salaries that they can look to later flip in a star trade if need be. This comes from Mark Stein and Jake Fisher of the Stein line in regards to that. That also says Jonathan Kuminga is also reportedly open to a short-term deal with the Hawks. The Hawks could sign and trade Kuminga, but they could be choosy as what the team they will trade with. So let's talk about this situation with the Hawks, both the Jonathan Kuminga situation and the Lu Dort situation as well. Is holding off on a Lu Dort contract extension smart? Is that smart flexibility, or are you taking a risk for a player that you just traded for that has no real ties to your team? You could end up playing him for the entire season, end up that he actually helps your team, makes that next step, and then could walk, right? Let's talk about both sides of this argument. For those that are new to the channel, we talk about both sides of every argument. It keeps us honest because I am a solo content creator here. Let's talk about the side of this of why the Hawks should wait. Dort's $18 million contract, it could be very useful in a star trade. And, Jake Fisher and Mark Stein pointing out that the Atlanta Hawks have several mid-tier contracts that could be used for a star. And you start thinking about that type of stuff and where the Hawks are, how the East has moved as well, and how many teams have made star moves over the course of this offseason. The Hawks sit in a position where, of course, you're hoping Jalen Johnson makes that next step as a player, right? That now with moving off of course, Trae Young and completely ending that era, you hit on Nickeil Alexander-Walker. That move ended up being good for you. You have Dyson Daniels as well that you're hoping he has a new contract extension as well. But you have expiring contracts in $21 million of CJ McCollum. You have 17, almost 18 million, 17.7, almost $18 million in the case of Lu Dort. Jock Landale, who you just signed as well, has a $14 million one-year deal from you also in regards to that. And then you have Buddy Hield also, who has a player option for next year at $10 million, but he has a $9.6 million contract. So when you look at this and what they've done, yes, the Hawks have set themselves up for tremendous flexibility. And so waiting to see if another star becomes disgruntled and you feeling like not only do we have a young player that another star could want to play with, we have infrastructure here, we're a team on the uprise and all that type of stuff. And while Lu Dort is very valuable, make no mistake about it, if you lock him in too early, maybe it does affect the flexibility that you can have and maybe landing one of those guys. And so I do think the Hawks have to be sure how much their core is still changing and still being molded, right? But at the other side of this, of maybe the Hawks should be more open to extension with him now. You have Lu Dort, who's a proven perimeter and interior defender. He's one of the few players that can guard out on the perimeter and guard interior, guard bigger players in the paint, and do both very well. He also brings a proven championship pedigree with him as he helped the Oklahoma City Thunder reach the status that they have been at as well. And I do think is letting extension talks sit could create a little bit of uncertainty with him and his agent and what the long-term plan is with the Atlanta team that you don't have those long-term ties with. So I think that you have Lu Dort is the type of player that has strong value regardless. So there could be a thing to say, go ahead and lock him into the extension. Maybe that actually makes it more likely that you get more back for him in a deal because he's the type of player that can fit with any team. The strong wing defense that he has. I know his offense comes and goes, and there's some varying thoughts and degrees on what the offensive side for Lu Dort looks like. But hey, if the Hawks believe in him and what he can bring to this team, and when you factor in those other things, you can make a case that you should go ahead and extend him. But I think that regardless of that, Dort brings value either way. And the question becomes about how Atlanta values that, right? Do they value more as a player that is part of their future, or do they value the flexibility more so of him having the possibility of being a trade chip in a much bigger trade that we don't have any rumors of right now, but that could materialize later down the road? And that's what they're going to have to ask themselves. And it'll be interesting to see what they come up with as being the answer for that one. With that said, like, the Hawks being positioned for a star trade makes some sense, right? Now, of course, Bryson Graham is now with my Chicago Bulls, but I think overall, when you look at the way that salaries work in the NBA and having expiring salaries, it still may not be what it used to be where you could move expiring contract and get, a valuable pick or anything back. But if a disgruntled star does become available, that's the type of contracts that those teams that are going into rebuilds anyway do value. An expiring move that you can move off of. They have the bird rights for those players, so even if they want to sign and trade, you can do that too as well. I think that's what you give it. Like the flexibility that the Hawks have, when you have that level of flexibility, you hold on to that for dear life, right? That's what you do in regards to it. They could be overthinking it a little bit, right? Because, again, we don't know who. Like, there's been so much star movement recently in this offseason, but that, I think, also creates the situation in why you want to wait. We didn't expect LaMelo Ball to be moved in the way that he did. A lot of people didn't expect Jaylen Brown to be moved in the way that he did, right? So you never know. The John Morant trade, which, of course, that's more of a reclamation project, but still that. You just never know, right? And to even say maybe it's not a star, maybe it's key role players. The Milwaukee Bucks are a team that has a lot of players that may not fit the timeline of the rebuild, and Jaime Jaquez, Tyler Hero, and others, we'll see, right? You have that possibility of it. I've talked about the Clippers and all the contracts that they have on that team that they can look to move. So you set yourself up when you have expiring contracts to be able to have that flexibility. And so I think, therefore, even if you're overthinking it a little bit, that's the type of thing you want to overthink in the modern NBA, is making sure that you hold on to that flexibility. But then the Kuminga part of this report from Mark Stein and Jake Fisher, that Kuminga could be interested in taking a short-term deal with Atlanta. He just did this with the Golden State Warriors. It's part of the reason why he's a free agent right now. It's because of the option that they gave. Now, I will say this. Kuminga has once again had to getting a wake-up call for what his value in the free agent market actually is. He got it last year as a restricted free agent. He's getting into this year as an unrestricted free agent, right? And I think the fact that Atlanta has the chance here to keep control without a massive long-term contract, and Kuminga does have some upside. He does have the athletic tools and stuff like that. And so you could do that, and then, hell, if it doesn't work out, get you another team option like the Golden State Warriors did, and then move off of it, right? Now, I do think this situation could be messy, because it's clear that Kuminga, his agent, whoever, they have completely misevaluated now 2 years in a row, misevaluated what his market's going to be. And so usually when that happens, like, that value doesn't come back unless you really have an explosion of the season. But do the Atlanta Hawks have even the runway for Kuminga to really change his value that much? And that's what they're going to have to ask in regards to this one. The Jonathan Kuminga situation feels like it should just be a simple contract, because he is a role player that has averaged 12.5 points per game, not been overly efficient on offense or defense, and it shouldn't get to this point. But, we'll see what happens. Where do things have happened in the NBA? Let's move on to the next topic, though. Bradley Beal's situation has been a fairly quiet offseason for Bradley Beal. We're now through the third, fourth wave of free agency, and we're just now hearing about Bradley Beal. This also comes from Jake Fisher of this time on Bleacher Report. He talked about this on his live stream. He said this: veteran guard Bradley Beal is expected to sign with a playoff contender. After opting out of his contract with the LA Clippers, Beal is drawing interest from the Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics. A return to the Clippers also cannot be ruled out. The Heat are looking to add depth in shooting after acquiring Giannis Antetokounmpo this offseason, and Beal has a long-standing friendship with Jason Tatum. Both grew up in St. Louis, which has the Celtics in play. Beal appeared in just 6 games for the Clippers last season as he suffered a left hip fracture in early November. The veteran shooting guard joined LA after being waived and stretched by Phoenix Suns. Beal is expected to be healthy and ready for training camp this fall. Bradley Beal is in a similar situation, I guess more so an injury than Ja Wall was, right? Now, I'm going to talk about this on the Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics, right? Miami feels like a really good fit here, right? Because they need shooting, they need depth, having the type of player around Giannis, right? The Miami Heat feel like very much an incomplete team, even after making the Giannis Antetokounmpo trade, right? And so with Beal's ability to space the floor, attack closeouts, and Miami having that clear win-now environment, and let's be clear, Miami has been a team that hasn't been afraid of the reclamation project for players before either. And so Bradley Beal does not have to be the number one option, doesn't have to be that even remotely, but Miami are set up in a position with coaching, the win now, and the mentality that they maybe be able to take advantage of the things that Bradley Beal does best. If Bradley Beal is healthy, he gives them another offensive weapon, and they need that because the defense probably going to be pretty solid between Davion Mitchell, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and of course, Bam Adebayo, right? But the side of this that you talk about the Clippers, right? The Jason Tatum friendship part of it in the relationship, they're both from St. Louis. Shout out, I lived in St. Louis for a long time. It's great, right? But I don't think that necessarily makes it. But, the Celtics are a team themselves that have made a lot of changes this offseason, bringing in another veteran like Bradley Beal. They had, Nikola Vucevic they traded for last year. And maybe Bradley Beal fits a similar kind of role that Anthony Simons fit for them last season before they traded him to the Chicago Bulls for Nikola Vucevic. The Clippers, I don't know what the Clippers are doing. I'm not even going to lie to you. If the Clippers bring back Bradley Beal, it would seem weird because it seems like they should be going a more young, focused direction. But again, the Clippers have really, all their moves together have not really dictated that either. But I think the Miami Heat are the strongest fit right now. The question then becomes about, can Bradley Beal still really make a difference? And I do think Bradley Beal can help. He's not the player that he once was, right? But the fact that he will be healthy before training camp is good. He does bring shooting. He brings some experience. He brings those type of things. And contenders need players that can create more offense. Bradley Beal can do that. His role will be smaller than what it was in his prime, and he should be able to thrive in that to a degree. But teams should also be careful. Playing only 6 games, injuries kind of, when they start happening later on in your career, they start stacking, right, rather than getting better. And I do think in regards to this is that Bradley Beal's name at this point is probably bigger than the impact he's going to have on any team, but that doesn't mean that he still can't make an impact, right? Contenders, though, need availability. They don't need just reputation. So the question becomes about for Bradley Beal at that point, how much can he actually perform on the basketball court rather than just the reputation that he had as the player that he was? And I guess we'll see what happens in regards to that one. Last topic of the day before we get out of here, D'Angelo Russell is a player that reportedly, is going to work out a buyout with the Memphis Grizzlies. Are working towards a buyout there, and they're expected to work towards that. And, D'Angelo Russell is an interesting player at this point because, it's not that he can't do some things. He does have the capability of contributing in some shape, form, or fashion. But I think the thing is that D'Angelo Russell just has to realize who he is at this point and what the best role is for him on a team. Because I think sometimes players get caught up in who they were and all those type of things. And it's just you have to move on. That's not who you are anymore. That's not who teams need you to be. Much like we just talked about with Bradley Beal, for example, D'Angelo Russell can still help some teams as a bench scorer, a floor spacer in some regards in that way as well. And maybe he can have a whole second leg of his career if he really embraces that role and realizes that what he can be. He's still a player that can put up 10 or 12 points per game. I think he can do that pretty easily, right? 10 to 12 points. And a consistent 10 or 12 points with decent shooting is something that teams value. He's a career 36% three-point shooter, even though he hasn't shot that high since 2023-24 with the Lakers, but still a career really solid shooter. And D'Angelo Russell could be an interesting piece in regards to that, right? I think, there's going to be fit concerns no matter where he goes, but if D'Angelo Russell can buy into the fact that you are now a role player, then you can make some things work. And I think that's what D'Angelo Russell needs to do. We'll see, right? Smaller role, value is there if you want to embrace a smaller role. As a starter now, I just don't know if that value is there anymore with D'Angelo Russell. But last topic of the day, I know I said that was the last topic. Last topic of the day before we get out of here, reportedly the Pelicans are listening to trade options on Jordan Hawkins, right? This comes from Mark Stein again that says the New Orleans Pelicans are exploring the trade market for Jordan Hawkins. The Grizzlies are reportedly interested in Hawkins as well. Hawkins averaged 5.1 points, 1.7 rebounds last season. The Pelicans continue to turn down trade interest for Trey Murphy and Herb Jones. Jordan Hawkins is an interesting piece, right? Because, not to say that he offers some tremendous value for a team or something like that, but he is a player that in the right role, your teams could be willing to bite on. And a team like the Memphis Grizzlies actually makes a lot of sense to be a team that could bite on that. He's 24 years old, is Jordan Hawkins still. And he's only, 3 years removed from being a lottery pick. But, over those 3 years in the NBA, he's averaged 8 points, only double figures once. He shot the ball 37% for his career from the field and 34% from three. But if you're the Memphis Grizzlies and you're clearly going into a rebuild, why not take a shot on a player? This is where teams, when you're in a rebuild and in that kind of weird place before you really know what you have in your young players, these are the type of young players you take a shot on. It's not going to take a lot to trade for Jordan Hawkins. More than likely, you bring him in here, and hey, if you can reclaim him and what his potential was coming out of UConn, great. If not, no harm, no foul. It's towards the end of the rookie deal. You can move off that, no harm, no foul, but you can get him in your building, have a year of evaluation with him and see what maybe you want to do with him, and if you think you can reclaim some of that interest, right, and that potential. So, we'll see what happens with Jordan Hawkins. An interesting player in some regards, but again, neither a thing that's here nor there. Just don't overpay for a player like Jordan Hawkins. But that's going to be it for today, y'all. Y'all make sure y'all sound off down in the comment section on all the topics. How do you feel about Bradley Beal? What do you think happens ultimately with Jonathan Kuminga? And are the Atlanta Hawks playing it right with this Lu Dort situation? Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or an upload. You can follow us at the Full Court YT. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, the NBA show at gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything basketball related. And I'll catch you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
Been a presentation of the Breaks Media.